Hello and welcome to Chandu.org. In this video, we are going to learn top 10 Excel formulas for modern Excel. With newer versions of Excel, there are always these easy to use and better functional formulas available for us. So if you are still working with if formulas and sum formulas and those kind of things, then time is ripe for you to learn some of these advanced but still very much accessible formulas so that you can increase your skills and do many other cool stuff with your data. For this example video, we are going to use a fictional data set of a company which is tracking some leads. These are people and monitoring how much they have purchased and what is the quantity. Okay, so let me just quickly explain what we have here. So if you look at this, each row contains a lead number. This is a unique identifier to know who that lead is, what is the date on which that lead came to us, and from which state. They're usually from one of the 5 states, Colorado, Washington, New York, and Ohio and Texas, and then how much amount they have purchased and what is the quantity they have purchased from us. Right, this is all randomly made up data, but it kind of gives you a sense of what is happening, and we will try to use this data for all the 10 examples, top 10 formula examples, so that you don't need to learn about new data sets when we discuss some other example. Okay, now the very first formula that I have for you is not even a formula, but it is actually a technique, and I believe this is the most important skill to have when it comes to writing Excel formulas, because if you do not have this skill, then you will not be able to write any good formulas at all. We are wondering what this is. It is actually how to refer to things, specifically how to refer to things that are already in a tabular format. Now Excel is well known for its cell-based referencing and cell-based address structure. So for example, that cell is J4 because it's in column J and row number 4. So if I have a number like 10 in there and I just want to multiply that number with 5, I could write the formula J4 times 5 and that will give me the answer. But in many business situations, you do not have data that is lying in cells like J4 or A7. I mean, you do, but more possible thing would be that this data is already in a tabular format. That is, it is in a table with few specific columns and several rows, and all of this is formatted as a table, and this is something that you might commonly do. Either you do it or you have seen your colleagues and friends already do it. So if you have some data and you do not have it as a table format, you can just select the data, go to insert table. This is grayed out because my data is already in a table, and then that data belongs in a table. Now whenever you have data in a table, you can use tabular or structural referencing to talk to this data. This is the most important skill to have, and I'm not gonna make this lesson all about structural referencing because there are quite a few nuances and advanced techniques that you could use in that space, but we will just cover some of the very simple basics because we will be using table references or structural references from for all the 10 examples from here on. So once you create a table, Excel would give this table a name like table 1 or table 72 or whatever it is going on with your spreadsheet. But you can go to the design ribbon. Whenever you select any cell inside the table, the design ribbon is labeled, and you can go there and you can name this table. For the sake of simplicity, I have named my table as data, and this way everything is just very simple and straightforward. Now let's say I wanted to understand what is the total purchase amount. Now in normal world, you would be writing a formula like sum of E4 through E41, but because the data is already in a table and it is called as a data, so essentially the answer that I want is what is the amount in the purchase amount column of the table data. So I could write the formula total amount is equal to sum of data table and then open square brackets purchase amount, and then close the bracket, and you would get the answer that this total amount is $19,422. So this kind of referencing is called structural referencing. Not only structural references are elegant and plain English, right? Everything looks and easy to write and easy to read, but they are versatile and scalable. That means if you were to import 100 more leads into this table, you don't have to change this formula. As soon as you add some information at the bottom, this number changes automatically. Okay, so that is the very first lesson, structural referencing. If you want to get the entire value in a column, you just refer to that column. If you want to get a specific row value, then we use a different technique, which is what we will do for our other formulas. Okay, so that's the first technique. Now let's go to the second option, top 2 Excel formula. This is IFS formula, IFS. Now you might already know the if formula. The if formula is one of the bread and butter of pretty much all the spreadsheets. You write a condition like if age is greater than 18, do this or do that, and you know, those kind of things. But real life business setup is a little more complicated. So we could use ifs formula, where you can have multiple logical tests and value if true, value if false, like that. Okay, so that's your ifs formula. Let's just quickly look at that. For the ifs formula example, I thought we could look at the lead number. Now the lead number, if you observe, it has 3 letters followed by some sort of a number, at least 3 or 2 letters, right? So the format is like this: OTH, WEB, FB, CRG, ADS, and then NP. I think those are the options. And these stand for web, Facebook, Craigslist, AdSense, newspapers, and other. So when a lead comes to us, we give them an ID based on what is the source of their journey to us, right? How did they get to us? So these are the options. Now if I want to really understand and classify these leads into 2 buckets, right? The first bucket is online and the other bucket is offline, right? Online is anyone that is coming from web, Facebook, Craigslist, or AdSense, and offline is anyone who is coming from newspapers or other. Others are people who might just pick up the phone and call us and place an order. Let's just imagine that, right? So that means if the code is either OTH or NP, then they're offline, else they're online. Okay, so we could write an if formula, but because if formula is something that you might already know, let's write the ifs formula. We will call this as lead group, and we will write a formula here. Ifs, the logical test is, there are different ways to write this formula. Let us see what are the commonalities. The commonality is, if the first letter is O or N, then they're offline, otherwise they're online, right? That's a very, very simple way of saying this. Now how do you get the first letter of a value? Again, without getting too complicated and anything, we could use a formula called left and then take a value. Now whenever you refer to a value within the table, it will automatically add this @ symbol and then say @lead number. That means the lead number that is in that current row, whatever row you're writing this formula on, comma 1 equals to O, offline, right? The second option is, again we will use left formula, and then first letter N, then offline. Else, now this is my, if these 2 conditions are not true, then that means they have to be an online lead, and we want online. Now there is no easy way to put a default option here, because it is expecting a logical condition, right? What should I do? What is the logical test that I should do to print online? So there is where a trick can help. We can simply write true here. True means, you know, it's always, the logical condition is going to be always true, and that will do the trick for us. So this is a little bit of different take than an if formula, where you would usually write these kind of things as nested if formulas, that is one if formula inside another and then one more inside that. Whereas here, through ifs function, you're able to shrink everything into one nice function and keep it there. So this way it is easy to not only write but also to change or modify or fine-tune if there is any requirement for that. Okay, the trick for ifs formula is you write test and then output, test and output, test and output, like that. There is no default option, but you could use the true as an option and then put that there. Make sure this true thing is the last one that you do there, because if it is somewhere in between, then that is what you will get. Anything else after that you will not get. Okay, so this is that. You can see that this is offline and those are online, and that one is offline, and newspaper is offline as well. So that's your second function. The ifs function is one of the newer functions introduced in Excel. So if you are using an old version of Excel, then you may not be able to use ifs function. You would still have to use if formula and then nest one inside another by putting those functions as layers. Now the third one, so we have covered table references, ifs function. The third one is actually counting and summing based on a condition. So now that we have grouped the leads into offline and online, we could see how much they're bringing in. The total amount is 19,422, but if I want to know how much it comes from online and offline groups, I can see that. I'll just move these here, and then so what we want is, we want to sum up purchase amount where the lead group is online. So this is where we use a classic function called SUMIFS. That is, I want to sum up a value based on multiple conditions. The sum up that I want to do is on data purchase amount, and then the criteria is data lead group is, we could put online in double quotes, but because the value is already there, I can just point to that cell and then press enter. So from online we get 11,000, from offline we are getting 7,000. So that's the breakdown, and the total adds up to that amount which is already there. So this is your SUMIFS formula. If you want to count, so this is my dollar. If I want to count how many leads came, what is the exact number of leads that we are getting, we could use a similar function called COUNTIFS that just counts rather than sums. And then here we can say data lead group is here, and then you can see that we got 23 leads from online and 15 leads from offline. So that's SUMIFS and COUNTIFS. These functions are one of the standard and most often used functions when it comes to doing any kind of data analysis and information analysis in Excel. So far all we have done is just put the data in a table, but the moment you want to answer any business questions, like, you know, how much we are getting through online leads, or how much we are making in Washington, or what happened in the month of January, then you must be very familiar with these functions. Otherwise you will not be able to answer those questions in a competent manner. There are other techniques to answer similar questions in Excel, like pivot tables, but because this video is focusing on Excel formulas, we're going to stick with formulas and learn those techniques. So that is SUMIFS and COUNTIFS. Again, these functions are far more powerful than what you have seen here. There are many creative ways in which you can specify the conditions and get the outputs. So that is something that I leave to your imagination or further learning, because here my intention is to just give you an overview of the top 10 functions and demonstrate them, provide you with an example. Okay, so that's your third one. The fourth one is called as a switch function. Okay, now many of you might already know the choose function. Choose function is, you can give it a number. For example, you can say 3, and then you can say what would be the output for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all those values, and depending on the input. So let's just put that input there, and then the output can be picked up. So we could say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, weekend, right? Something like that. And then if I put a value here, I can say 3, then it'll give me Wednesday, 4, Thursday, 6, weekend, 1, Monday, right? So it does give you that. That's what switch function does. It choose function does. It can select one of the outputs based on the input number, right? But choose function is quite useful, but it has a limitation. That is, the input must always be a number, right? People didn't like this, so they wanted a function from Microsoft that you can give any input like text or date or whatever, and then based on various options you can pick. So that's what switch function does. It's a new function available in modern versions of Excel. You can give any input and then you can say what is the value, what is the result. So I'll show you an example here. We have done the lead group, and now let's do the states. So as you can see, there are a bunch of different states, but they're just 5 different. So we have Colorado, New York, Ohio, and then Texas and Seattle, right? So let's just for the sake of this example, let's group them into 3 different options, right? We could say New York and Ohio as east, and then Texas as south, and Seattle and Colorado as other, right? So 3 different things. So we can create a new column called territory, and then we just want to figure out what territory each lead belongs to, based on these things that we have defined. So we'll say switch state, and then so we'll say Colorado is other, then Seattle is other, and then did I say Texas? Yeah, Texas is south, and then the last one is east, and because this is a default one, you can simply say east and then close it. And this will categorize for us. It will look at the state column, and then it will see, is it Colorado? Then it's other. Is it Washington? It's other. Is it Texas? It's south. It's none of these, then it must be east, and then it classifies that. So this is a very powerful function, and it does that based on those value and output pairs that you do. And then the last one is the default. So whereas in the ifs function that you have done here, there is no default option, so we had to kind of hack it through the true thingy, but that's the switch. So these are new functions, both ifs and switch, and if you have been using the nested if and some other concocted way of doing things through choose function, then try playing with both of these, because they might solve some of the tricky business problems in a more elegant and straightforward manner, right? So we now have both the lead group and territory as extra things. Let's jump into the number 5, which is, I'm pretty sure you're already expecting to see this, but it is VLOOKUP. Now VLOOKUP is very old. It's been around for several years. I don't remember when is the first time Microsoft introduced this, probably Excel 97 or something like that. But this function is like a lifesaver for many people. The other day I was meeting some colleagues for drinks after work, and I kid you not, we were like a bunch of 7 or 8 people, and most of us do Excel work day in day out, and we were just talking and doing things, and I heard this conversation from the other table. This is just right across, and then there were a couple of ladies, and they were talking, I kid you not, about VLOOKUP, right? So VLOOKUP is so popular that even when you finish your work and you go for a drink or a game or whatever, you're still thinking about VLOOKUP, because it is a big part of spreadsheet work that many of us do. So no list of top 10 formulas in Excel can be complete without VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP, as the name suggests, is a lookup function. What it does is you ask a VLOOKUP, hey, what is the detail for the lead number NP0018, and then it can give you the answer. I'll show you a very simple example. Lead number, and then we can type a number here. Let's go with that same thing that I just said, NP0018, and then I want to know how much, what was the date on which that lead was acquired, right? So this is what VLOOKUP does. VLOOKUP, what do you look up? That value. Where is the data? The data is in the data table, and what is the output that you want? So the way VLOOKUP works is it will always look up in the first column, and it will try to look up that value, so NP0018, and then it finds what is the corresponding value you want. So we are looking up lead number, we want the date, which is in the second column, so that's what I will say is 2, and then you want to tell VLOOKUP how you want to look up. In most business cases, we always want an exact match, so we want to go for that exact number, right? NP0018, and then you say false, and Excel gives you this beautiful date called 43,532. You might be thinking, oh Chandu, what are you on? That's not a date. Well, it is a date. It's just, it's Excel's way of, like, a weird sense of humor for Excel there. All dates in Excel are numbers, so this is actually the numeric representation of the date. You can select that cell and then format it as a date to see the underlying date value. That lead was acquired on March 8th of 2019. So you can see the answer here like that. Now this part of VLOOKUP you already know, so I'm gonna give you one extra advanced pro tip for VLOOKUP, so that you know, it is quite a powerful function, and there are many very interesting uses. Now if you observe the lead number, the first text bit, that is OTH, WEB or FB, that always changes, but those numbers, they are just unique, right? This 1, that's 2, that's 3. So rather than giving the full detail, what if I were to type just the number part of lead number, right? I just want to know what is the case with lead number 21, right? What is the date? Now if I were to do the VLOOKUP just the same way like earlier, I'll get #NA, because there is no lead with that value 21, right? There are a lot of people, but there's no 21. I mean, there is 21 here, but that's not 21. From Excel's point of view, that is FB0021. So Excel is expecting to see that, not just 21. And whenever VLOOKUP doesn't find the answer, it will give you that #NA message. It's not doing any Twitter hashtags or Instagram tags here. It's Excel's way of saying, I couldn't find what you're looking for. But we can ask Excel, hey, don't look for 21, look for any lead number where the last part is 21, right? So to do that, we'll simply have to put within double quotes *ampersand. That means it can be anything, it can start with anything. That's what star indicates. Asterisk, it can start with anything, but the end must be 21. And then press, you'll get that. Now this is not the correct way of going with this. For example, that's 21, but you know, imagine there were few more 21s, 121, 221, so on and so forth, and then what VLOOKUP does is it will find the first 21 and will give you that answer, right? So while this VLOOKUP function, especially the star operator, is very useful, it may not be the most useful one in all business cases, so you want to keep that in mind. In our case, there are only 40 numbers and there is only 121, so it works very well. But in your business data, whenever you use this special wildcard operator called star, there is one more called question mark. Whenever you use them, just keep in mind that VLOOKUP will stop looking after it finds the first matching value. So that's the number 5, VLOOKUP. Just to do a quick recap, the number 1 is table references, number 2 is ifs formula, which can be a good substitute for nested long-winded if formulas. The number 3 is sum and countifs formulas, to count and sum up numbers by different criteria. Number 4 is switch formula, which is a replacement for choose formula, but it is quite robust. And number 5 is obviously VLOOKUP. Now let's go to the number 6, which is subtotal. Now this is something that you may not be using on day-to-day basis, but I find that having a good understanding and example use cases of subtotal function in your repertoire can be very, very useful. Because what subtotal does is, if you write a sum function, we already did here, right? There is a sum of total quantity, right? Now I'll write a similar function for subtotal as well. Subtotal, what do we want? We want sum, so that's number 9. And what do we want to sum up? We want to sum up data, purchase amount. So these number and that number are same. Look at these two numbers, they're same. I'm gonna just move it up here so we could do the comparison. Now if I were to filter by online, my total amount is still 19,422, but look at the subtotal. Brilliant, isn't it? Subtotal will only add things that are visible on the screen, right? So subtotal can be a very useful formula, especially if you are building some large data set and you're doing some calculations, and then your boss comes up and then she says, you know what, I just want to care about our online leads in East. So she does some filtering, and this number doesn't change, but your subtotal does, so you can instantly provide that answer without having to build complex ifs functions or whatever that you have in mind. Now I'll make it even more awesome, right? If you're thinking, oh, subtotal is good, I'm gonna use it, here is the kicker. With new Excel, once you have data as a table, you can insert slicer on a table. Look at this, that's a table. I'll insert a slicer. Let's add a slicer on lead group and territory. What this does is it gives you these nice little boxes, and then these are buttons that you can click on. So you can say other, online. You see what's happening? As you click, the original data gets filtered and then the subtotal is getting updated, right? So this is a very powerful dynamic. You don't have to manually filter things. You can create this. You could even create a sample output sheet and then cut your subtotal formula, put it here, select those two things, cut them, paste them here. So you can just play with those things here. You don't have to look at your original data that's behind the scenes somewhere, and you're still able to get the answer. You can just select multiple items, you can clear the values, and you can see the answers there. So this gives a much more dynamic sense of providing information. While subtotal is good, there are only limited type of subtotals you could do. You could do averages, counts, min, max, sum, and variance, and few other bits, but that's about it. If you're getting really curious, oh, this is good, what else can I do? There's one more function called aggregate, and it does offer similar things, but few more things like medians, mode, and large, small, percentiles, and quartiles, and few other bits. So these are very, very good and very powerful functions, and that's why I considered subtotal to be one of the top 10 functions in Excel that you should be learning to do really cool things. So that's subtotal, number 6. Number 7 is your good old statistical thingies. Those are the minimum, maximum, average, etc. And we already know, for example, I want to know what is the maximum purchase amount, right? Max of data purchase amount. I get the answer 579. All good. Now if I want to know what is the maximum purchase amount from offline channel, how do we do this? There is no easy way to do this. Well, until now. With new Excel, they have added not only these max, min, and average formulas, but there are these max ifs. It works exactly like your sum ifs and count ifs, but it will give you the maximum. So we could say data purchase amount, and the criteria range is data lead group is offline. So I'll give you that answer. Seems like 539 is from offline, so we could probably try online. 559 is the total maximum for online. So that's maxifs. You could use similar function called minifs and averageifs. Averageifs has been around for a while, but those other two, the maxifs and minifs, are recently added into Excel, and they're super helpful and they help you write better formulas. Otherwise what you would have to do is you would have to write complex array formulas, which are like a big no-no if you're learning Excel, right? You want to avoid them as far as possible before plunging into them. Okay, so that's my number 7, max, min and average ifs functions. Number 8 is a very simple function, but often when you are working in Excel, you're not only dealing with numbers, but you're also dealing with a lot of text data, as you could see here. So the number 7 function that I have for you is number 8 is find function. And what it does, it finds things. So you could say find something within another big thing that also has something but other things. What it does is it will give you where it found the answer something. Now if I'm at, oh, what is happening? Why is it giving me a hashtag? That's because find is case sensitive. So you want to give everything in lowercase or uppercase for it to find the answer. If you don't want to bother about case, then you can use search function, which works exactly like find, but it is case insensitive, right? Both find and search functions are very useful when you are dealing with a lot of data that has some text components and you just want to compare based on whether you found a certain thing or not in the data. Okay, so that's that. Unfortunately, in this example data set, we don't have a lot of text. We do have some codes and things like that, but not nothing major. So I'm just gonna stick to that example there and leave you with that. The 9th one is date functions. There are many date functions, but I'll stick with the very simple one, which is today, which will give you current date. So as of today, it's 22nd of March 2019. So that's today's date. Now how could we use this function in the context of data analysis? Obviously you don't want to know what date is today. You can just look at calendar. You don't need Excel to give you that answer. But because it's a function, when you open the spreadsheet tomorrow or next week or maybe 10 years later if you're watching it then, or 5 years before if you're a time traveler, you can open this file in Excel and it'll give you that date, not the 22nd of March 2019 on which I'm recording this. So that's the beauty of these functions. But in this example, we know when the lead is acquired, so we could calculate how long they have been with us. We can call this as age, and then that is today minus that date. Now remember, all dates are numbers, right? That's what we have seen here. So if I take one number, that is today's date, subtract another date from past, it will give me the difference, how many days they are, and that's that. If I format that as general, then I can see that lead has been with us for 59 days. Some of them are only 2 days. This one is just from today, 0 days, like that, right? So that's the age of this lead, how long they have been with us. And because this is using the formula today, when I open tomorrow, all of these persons' age will go up by 1 day, right? So that's number 9. And number 10 is, now we all do data analysis in Excel. We calculate things, we present things, and we create stuff in Excel. But often the work that we do in Excel is not for us, right? We want to create things so that others can read this and make decisions, or sometimes we read and make decisions, but most of the time you're making this for your clients, colleagues, or bosses, or whoever. And when your boss is using things, right? For example, your boss comes here and they want to do a VLOOKUP, and then they see NP0018 Friday March 18. Oh, I wonder what happened to NP0019. And then they see an error, #NA. Oh, this doesn't look good, right? It looks good and makes sense for us because we built it, we know what this is. But your manager, they may not understand this. Your clients, they may not understand this. So rather than saying #NA, wouldn't it be cool if it reads lead not found? right? That's what if error function does. That's my number 10. What if error does is, if there is any error with any of this internal formula that you have built, it will display this message. So lead not found. So that's what we get. The moment you correct the value, you get correct result, else you get lead not found. So there you go. I hope you found these top 10 Excel functions very useful. Let me do a very quick recap. Number 1 is table references. We can use table name, column name structure for referring to entire columns, or @ notation to refer to individual elements of table rows. Number 2 is ifs function, which is similar to nested if function, but it is all in one line. So this is more modern and easy to use, and I highly recommend that you adopt this into your spreadsheets if possible. Number 3 is sum ifs and count ifs, using which you can count or sum based on conditions like this, like how much is the total purchased amount by the lead group online or offline. Number 4 is a switch function, using which you can calculate things based on any parameters, not just numbers. So we were able to take state and divide that into 3 territories using switch function. Number 5 is VLOOKUP, using which you can look up answers to questions like what is the date on which particular lead came on board, or how much amount was purchased by that lead, etc. Number 6 is a subtotal function, using which you can look at the totals, counts, averages, minimums, maximums of the filtered or visible data. When you filter something away, it goes invisible, right? So that's what subtotal does. It gives you the answer for things that are already on the screen, not the ones that are hidden away. Number 7 is max, min, average ifs, using which I can calculate what is the maximum amount with some conditions, what is the minimum amount with conditions, what is the average amount with conditions. And these are very useful in complex business situations where you need to answer specific questions. Number 8 is find function, using which you can find text values one inside another. Find is case sensitive, whereas search is not case sensitive. Number 9 is today function, using which you can calculate current date. You can also use other date functions like now to calculate today's date and current time, etc. And we have used a today function inside in this table to calculate the age of our leads, to see who has been around for how long, how many days. And number 10 is if error function, because hey, hash NAs happen. You don't want your colleagues or bosses to see them. So that's why we use if error function to trap any errors in our formulas and present legible and clear information to our audience. So I hope you found this top 10 Excel functions video very useful, and please give all of these a try and share your comments and suggestions in the comment section below. If you think there should be other functions included, please mention them as well, and I'll try to make another video with that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in next video. Bye bye.